E- Perché non so se il... Eccoci qua.
Però ci sentiamo.
Ciao.
That's how everything you know what I mean? Actually,
Hi guys, I'll just speak in English for those that are not Italian. We're about to start the panel. Thank you very much for being here. We're very excited to host Giovanna Pancheri and Stefania Battistini here. They are two very well-known journalists in Italy, and I'm sure that they will give you a lot of interesting insights. I just wanted to take 1 minute to do a little bit of advertisement, because Humanitarian Societies is a non-profit organization that connects 11,000 Italian students around the world. We're present in 8 different countries. And the 2025 Italian Symposium is in its 3rd edition. And we are bringing it this year around the world, actually. This week we'll be in London, next week we'll be in Madrid. And from the 11th to the 13th of April, we will be in New York. So we are very excited to start here where it was born. I also wanted to introduce to you a project that we're developing inside our organization. It's called the UIS Research Center. Essentially, it's a hub for PhD students, Italian PhD students abroad, that can collaborate, communicate, network together, and work alongside undergrad and master students to develop research that is in their expertise of the specific PhD students. We have a team of research of PhD students that surpasses 10 people. We are looking for more PhD students around the world. If you know someone that might be interested, they are welcome. If you are very interested to participate in our research as an undergrad or master student, you can contact us through our Instagram account, uis.research center, or you can speak directly to Simone, who's here, who's part of the research team. So thank you very much for being here. We'll start in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay.
I don't remember. Oh, that's fine.
You never replied to me because first of all was the other. Now it's fine. Just when somebody said the other one.
Thank you, Livio. Undergrad, a volte avevo lezioni sul termine che telefono. Non mi è mai capitato, no? Solo nella nostra common room era piena di pippa. Usciva di fuori. E quindi era
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm gonna be here just literally as the bouncer in the students' union rules of an academic, just making sure that nobody is being disrespectful or just misbehaving. So my name is Tiziana Leone. I'm a professor of health and international development in the Department of International Development here at the LSE. And I'm really pleased to welcome the panel organized by the United Italian Societies on the title "The World on the Edge: The Geopolitics in an Age of Uncertainty." You couldn't have a bigger ruling average. So I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of your chairs, Sarah Bilus and Francesca Horn. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Leone. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Italian Symposium 2025. Thank you to United Italian Societies and to LSE Italian Society. Today we have two of Italy's best journalists, Giovanna Pancheri and Stefania Battistini, and we're going to talk about geopolitics in an age of uncertainty. So before delving into the questions Francesca and I prepared for you, let me introduce them a little bit better. So Stefania Battistini is one of Italy's leading war correspondents. In August 2024, she and her cameraman Simone Traini became the first foreign journalists to report from Ukraine's country invasion into Russia-Kursk region. Their work triggered criminal proceedings by Russia FSB, forcing RAI to recall them for safety reasons. Giovanna Pancheri is the deputy editor-in-chief at Sky TG24 and an acclaimed journalist. She now anchors daily the network's main political show, and previously as EU correspondent, she covered major global events, including the European economic crisis, Brexit, the terrorist attacks in France and Belgium, and as Sky TG24 US correspondent and bureau-in-chief from 2016 to 2020, she provided in-depth coverage of Donald Trump's presidency and American politics. So, Francesca, you can start with the questions.
Thank you very much for being here. Just starting off with a question for both of you. So obviously, Trump is currently reshaping foreign policies quite significantly. And Italy is kind of positioned in a very interesting situation where it can act as a bridge between the UK, the EU, and the US. How do you think the war with Ukraine is going to evolve, and how do you think Italy can adapt its international position to reflect this?
Sorry. Now it's buongiorno, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm always, for me, it's very rewarding when I can talk to students everywhere. So I'm very happy to have your invitation. When we talk about the Italian position right now in this difficult moment, I know it's quite maybe obvious here in London, but I will go back to the famous Shakespearean mode, to be or not to be. It's Trump or not Trump. That's the dilemma that Meloni is facing more or less every day now, because that's on one side, that's true. She is the only stable major government conservative in the EU right now. She has been in Mar-a-Lago, since as soon as the Trump has been elected, and she has a special relationship with Elon Musk. So of course, it's something that can help her to have this kind of role. But then there is the reality. And the problem is that, Meloni right now, she's pushing to be this kind of bridge, but she has not the power to be, because Donald Trump conceived foreign policy as a discussion between a big and tough guy. And who are the big and tough guy? The guy with the atomic bomb. So it's UK and France. Those are the two main countries that Donald Trump is actually using when he wants to go to Europe. Also because you have to think that so far he didn't have a phone call since he's the White House with Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. And Giorgia Meloni had his own phone call, but she, in Italy, there is a lot of rumors about the fact that she's struggling to have a meeting in the White House that Macron had on one hand, on the other hand, also Starmer had. He didn't manage to have it yet. The justification was, we don't have the atomic bomb, we are not part of the Security Council of the UN. But the reality is that, if I'm not mistaken, today the Irish Prime Minister is flying to Washington. So, that's also give you the idea that how much she can really bargain in the name of Europe. I don't think she's in that kind of position so far to do so. But on the other hand, it's also for her the moment of a difficult choice where to place our country, if with the EU or in a more, let's say, pro-Trump or pro-Russian way, because now the European member states, they are divided, I would say, in three groups. We have the one and only Hungarian group, which is, pro-Putin and pro-Trump. We have a group which is more, we are no with Putin, no with Trump either, even though we are obliged to talk to him. And then there is the Meloni group, which is she's trying to say we are not with Putin, but we don't want to close the door to the US, even with Trump. And so we need to find a way to talk to them. And this, I think, it's a very important spot where she put herself. And she decided so far to lean our country on the EU side. The fact that she soon said that we agreed with the rearm Europe and was a sign in that direction. The fact that she was saying that for the, let's say, trade war is going to be EU negotiating for us, not we as Italy doing it in a bilateral way. It's a very important thing. But you also to think about the fact that she also has to face internal division in that, because the Deputy Prime Minister, Salvini, the leader of the Lega Nord, it's on the other side against the rearm project, is against the negotiation at EU level when it comes to trade. It's absolutely pro-Trump. So she has also to keep this difficult balance. But I want to say something else that is also happening, looking at the left party. Italy, so far, in our history after the Second World War, has always been on the EU and on the US side at the same time. And especially on the EU side, there was not a case in which, in confronting major crises, Italy was not supporting the solution that EU was putting forward. This time, when it comes to the rearm Europe, for the first time in Italian history, you have a minority of the party that are with the Commission, because you have Fratelli d'Italia, which is the party of Meloni, Forza Italia, which is the party of the Deputy Prime Minister or Minister of Foreign Affairs, the party of Berlusconi, so everyone can intend, but now it's not him anymore. And then you have the three very small center-left party. But the Democratic Party, the main center-left party, is against. So this is, it really a shifting also in our position. And I think this is also another interesting part to see how now things will develop in the future. apart from that, when it comes to the breach role, you know, that's the problem. I don't think in Washington we are considered so much to have and to cover this role, even though that's always been the case. So you don't have to be surprised. We're a small country. Every American wants to come on vacation, wants to eat American, eat Italian, buy Italian. But then when it comes to serious stuff, we're not the first one they call.
Yes, it's true. Meloni has a very good relationship with Zelensky from the beginning of the war. Italy has a good relation, had a good relationship with Zelensky before with Draghi and then with Meloni, and then obviously Meloni has a very good relationship with Trump and Musk too. We saw that with the case of Cecilia Sala in Iran. So it's true, as Giovanna said, that we have three parts for Russia, pro-NATO, and now we are discussing about the role of the European Union and in our politics. We are linked, it's a paradox, but Italy, the destiny of Italy is linked with the destiny of Ukraine. What Trump provoked is so-called the heterogeny of events. Before the meeting with the tense meeting with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine was suffering of a decrease of consensus, and it's easy to understand why, because after 3 years of fighting, people are suffering. It's difficult to make them accept a partial mobilization. Men that didn't join the army at the beginning of the war, now they are afraid to go to fight in the trenches in this moment of the war, when Russian attacks are increasing and they are losing a lot of lands. And so it's easy to understand why Zelensky is suffering in this moment. But after the meeting, Ukrainian people are starting to support Zelensky and to try to refound the cohesion and common units for fighting for their country and for the freedom of their country. And I think it's the same dynamic that Putin created with the aggression. Before that, in Ukraine, there were a lot of political division, a lot of different views about the future, about the alliances, fragmentation about the identity of the country. After that, the Ukrainians found this cohesion, this common view, the feeling of belonging to the same cultural community. And it's strange because before in Donbass, we saw that there were a lot of people who was close to Russia for building the future. Now it's different. Yes, we saw some territories are under occupation, and they voted for a fake referendum, and they said that they are supporting Russia, but it's not a legal referendum, so we have to consider that. And it's true that the Ukraine is a new country now after 3 years. So we will verify the consensus for Zelensky when the election could be organized, but now it's really impossible because Trump asked for that. But for me, that I stay there in the trenches with the soldiers, it's impossible to imagine to organize something close to election, because people are really under missile attacks, under drones attacks. I talk about the first line, the contact line of the battle, but anyway, also cities as Kyiv, Kharkiv, Kherson half of Kyrgyzstan is under Russian occupation. It's really impossible to imagine to organize the election for people. We saw something about. We saw the first referendum organized in Zaporizhia, the oblast, the region where that hosted the nuclear power plant. There we saw a lot of videos shot by civilians with Russian militaries who entered Ukrainian houses to oblige people vote. So it's impossible to accept a dynamic like that. So it's true that Ukrainian people would like to vote, but not now. And then when they would have the possibility to vote, we will see the consensus about on Zelensky. But it's also true that Ukrainian people support other figures, as for example, the Ukrainian ambassador here in London, Zaluzhny, the general, the ambassador, the Deputy General Zaluzhny is very beloved in Ukraine, and it's also true that he fought with Zelensky about some military decisions. For example, the siege of Bakhmut. Zaluzhny would have liked to stop to defend the Bakhmut because he thought it was useless, and Zelensky insisted, but at the end we saw that Zaluzhny was right. So it's a figure could help to find a solution in Ukraine.
Yeah, something that indeed, Stefania was saying before, the importance of the support of the Italian government to Ukrainian cause. And I have to say that I truly believe that the support that Meloni gave to Ukraine at the beginning of the war, when her party was at the opposition, it was the things that opened for her the door of Palazzo Chigi, to become prime minister. Because in that moment, she created an accountable figure for the rest of the war, even if she was considered, the far right party. But this support of Ukraine, it's something that in my opinion, she cannot just in the side. It's something that it's very important how she developed also our international figures. So.
Thank you for that. I think actually leading on from that, we've obviously seen, as you mentioned, Stefania, the meeting between kind of Trump and Zelensky as well recently, which was, I think, a shock to many people. Do you think that this meeting has kind of highlighted kind of Zelensky and Ukraine's vulnerabilities, or has it more kind of encouraged the strengthening relationship between Ukraine and its allies?
Both, to answer shortly, yes, both, because first of all, on the ground, Ukraine used to cope for to struggle for the lack of aids, military aids, because during Biden's era, anyway, the Congress blocked because of the Republicans, but blocked the aids. So we were in the trenches with the soldiers when they didn't have enough weapons to defend themselves, to defend the trenches, the position, to defend the land, and it's really crazy when you see a missile or a missile arriving and you don't have anything to stop it. So it was crazy also when the Leopards arrived in the battlefield, but they didn't have the ammunition. So they have a very large park of tanks, beautiful technological tanks, but no ammunition. So it was so useless and also dangerous because you can't gather a lot of tanks in a place, in a unique place, and because it's a military target. So we witnessed a lot of difficulties about this lack of American aids or delayed of American aids. Now we are living a very different moment because we are talking about the end of the war, how to give Ukraine some security guarantees. It's very difficult, but I believe that that meeting with Trump was like planned by Vance and Trump, but it's also true that maybe Zelensky could refuse to speak in English because we saw he had under control the situation, and he let a journalist provoke him about the suit. It was really surreal for me to see this people talking about the suit of Zelensky when people are dying in Ukraine for years. But anyway, I think that it was a problem of credibility also for Trump among their allies. And so now it's also true that for paradox, in Europe, Zelensky is stronger than before. And they made here in London of 18 leaders who are supporting and very close with Zelensky, give a lot of meanings about the future. So both.
Yeah, moving on from this, Giovanna, in your book, Ibero-Americana, you dissect the evolution of US foreign policies and its influence in the global power dynamics. As Stefania said, we saw the difference between the meeting with Trump and Zelensky meeting with the EU leaders. How do you think, do you think this is a strategic recalibration of the American empire, or do you think it's a significant retreat from its key role in the Western security?
I think the two things are not in contradiction in the sense that the fact that is, retiring for the, let's say, EU soil is not against the idea that is trying to rebuild that kind of American empire. I try to express myself, just being better myself. In my book, I underline how much in the recent, let's say, the last 25 years, the United States exercised the imperial power, if you want to define like that. There is also, not all scholars agree on that definition, but mainly through soft power and, to their influence with their allies. Now, on the one hand, a lot, maybe all of you have seen and heard people saying, oh, with Trump, there is no war, it's a president of peace. He doesn't want the US to be actually engaged in other theaters. Guys, this is not the case. It's exactly the contrary. He wants to rebuild the world order with in a kind of triangle, where you have Russia on one side, with a kind of influence also in part of Europe, China, Asia, and he wants to control the Americas. And, I don't consider a peace guy or someone that doesn't have a vision as an empire, a president that wants to make Canada the 51st states of the United States, a president that wants to conquer Greenland, a president that wants to take all the mineral and, important material that Ukraine can have. This is another kind of vision of empire, which is not true soft power, but is really sometimes true hard power. And also through, I'm very frightening on what is happening in the US right now, because I think that the kind of message that they're trying to put forward, it's very dangerous for all of our democracy. And I'm afraid that this kind of influence can be broad, because actually we have seen and read a lot of this kind of parties inspired by Trumpists to come forward. And I'm very frightened by a president that wants to put freedom above liberties. There is a main difference between freedom and liberty. Since you're students, guys, some of you wants to tell me the difference between freedom and liberty. There is no marks, not gonna count for your graduation. Not yourself. No? No one? Freedom and liberty. Okay, I'll do it. Freedom, let's say, is what let, I don't know, Elon Musk or all of us to say and do whatever we want, okay? To become richer and richer without control of the states, to write on the social media that LGBTQ shouldn't have any kind of rights, or to insult in a rational way someone. And liberty is what protects all of us from people like that. So this is the core of how democracy works when liberty is a form of freedom. And now, if you heard Trump, people around Trump, but also party in Europe that inspired themselves to this kind of new right wing, you always listen to them and they always talk about freedom, individual freedom. But when you change this difficult balance, that means that democracy is at stake. So I think that what is happening there, it's absolutely dangerous. It's absolutely the kind of imperial view. And it's something that, as European, I don't know if you have the strength to face it, because we were used, also thanks to the US, to actually realize what Kant used to say, do not we say perpetua in English, la pace perpetua, the perpetual peace, And all of you, but me as well, I mean, I'm not sold, I was born in this kind of European dream of peace, And war was not just something distant, but it was also something silly, because we were living the dream of the possibility to have an union between countries that few years before they were battling against each other. But that's also make the fact that we are not used anymore to this kind of confrontational world where we don't have the umbrella of an ally like the United States. And I really think, this is a momentum for the European Union, a moment of living or die. And we'll see how we are going to react. I think the rearm pact that Ursula von der Leyen just proposed is a good step forward, but yes, not to be the only one. So I'm sorry, it's not very timid you, but it's okay.
Another question for you, Giovanna. So we saw recently, the US and European countries vote with regards to Russia's responsibility for the invasion. And now it appears that the US is kind of going back on this and is kind of reevaluating its position and maybe not blaming Russia as much for the invasion of Ukraine. What do you think kind of the international kind of results of this are going to be? Do you think it comes all under a kind of clear foreign policy strategy by Trump, or is he just reacting to events as they come?
No, it's part of all this strategy that we were saying. A part of this strategy is also to undermine what we consider true or not true. I remember during the first presidency, there was, one of, maybe you remember this stupid at the time, controversial about how many people attend to the first inauguration of Trump and how many people attend to the first inauguration of Obama. And Trump people were saying there were more people, but you had pictures of like the crowds. Also, it was also raining, to say the truth, during Trump inauguration. So maybe that was the reason why. But okay, you see the pictures. And at one point, one of his spokesperson on TV, she was saying, that the journalists were saying to her, look, this is a fact, you see the two pictures, yeah, but there are also alternative facts. Alternative facts, it became, mainstream things of the first president, and now it's what is going, forward, because alternative facts and let's say fake news are the way to change this balance that we were saying before between freedom and liberties. I think that one of the most dangerous executive order that Donald Trump signed in the second term, it was the executive order on freedom of speech. I invite all of you to go and have a look at it. It's on the website of the White House. And more or less, okay, I'll make it in a simple way, but it's saying we gonna punish, fine all the institutions, public or private, that are gonna put boundaries to the freedom of speech. That's mean newspaper that go and fact checking, it's a boundaries. to the freedom of speech. Be aware, the freedom of speech is just what they consider freedom of speech, because at the same time, you see in the recent day, a person that had a green card was married to an American woman that has been expelled because he was, leading the protest in the campus in the university in the US. And you can agree or not agree with the Propal protest, but this is a example of freedom of speech, to be able to point, to manifest, to protest, to put forward your cause. So also on that, you have to be very attentive on how they use it. And let's say the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine, it's a fact. So if you want to change this vision in the rest of the world, you need to repeat this lie until when people doesn't start to think that maybe there is something true in it. And that's, has been part of how Trump grew up as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, is part of his Roycon, great lawyer that he had, it's not a very bad word, very bad lawyer, a mean person that expired all his policy, but that's exactly things. You say something, you repeat something, it becomes true, just because you're saying that. But no, please keep your eye wide open, especially in this moment of history, on what is fact. There is no alternative fact, just fake news.
Thank you. Stefania, you mentioned about the consensus in Ukraine to Zelensky. And I think after the recent events, we can say that there is an increasing speculation about Ukraine's political future. So I was wondering, do you see a credible political alternative to Zelensky? Do you think he will step down after recent events? And if so, is there an administration that is solid, or it will leave a political vacuum that is very strong?
I think that now it's very, very early to speak about a person who can be a substitute of the Zelensky. Zelensky is the most beloved figure in Ukraine, and maybe it's for that Zelensky chose to send him here in London. No, I'm joking, but it's true. No, it's very, very early. If you would have the possibility to visit Ukraine in this moment, you can understand that it's impossible to organize some election. And it's also impossible to withdraw the martial law. Martial law previews that opposition party are forbidden, any kind of opposition is forbidden. So it's really difficult to talk about democracy when you are under a missile attack, under drones attack. And so, but I would like to add something about what you said, Giovanna. Maybe these 3 years, I think they were the worst period to be a journalist, because when we arrived in Ukraine, we arrived there 10 days before the invasion, and we saw everything. We saw the invasion, we saw the tanks arriving, we saw the jet near Kyiv, near the capital. And when after the first Russian withdrawal, we saw Bucha in Borodianka, we saw with our own eyes the dead bodies inside the mass graves. We saw these signs of torture on a lot of women. We saw people dead in the cars, inside the human corridors. But when we watched the TV at that time, we saw a lot of so-called experts or analysts who had never been in Ukraine, had never visited Ukraine.
Like the Vice President,
Yes, or Professor Orsini, or
yes, of course.
lower, but but also colleagues as
I think it's not important.
No.
No.
Uh,
Maybe you mean the editor-in-chief of an important newspaper, not so important newspaper.
Also, if you mentioned, but also another, one, Tony Capuozzo.
Tony, yeah.
He was a very clever journalist, and I loved them before this invasion. But a lot of these experts were invited in the talk show, Italian talk show, to say Bucha is an invention, and it was really crazy. It concerned this post-truth legal. The goal is to make confusion in the mind of people. But yes, the facts are so clear if you study, if you go deeper in every situation, if you try to select your sources, to also check the work of your sources, to understand if they are trustable or not.
Yeah, I think the last question goes also on this. So I think we all saw the recent AI video about Gaza as a luxury resort with Trump, Musk, Benjamin Netanyahu. And you touched on this, but based on your experiences, both of you, how do you navigate the risk of misinformation and ensure accuracy in reporting when digital manipulation is so prevalent nowadays and so dominant?
It's a difficult time to do so, and that's also why I think that fact checking is even more important. That has never been. Of course, going Stefania do as I did for a long time, go and see things with your own eyes. So it was the best way. But you cannot always do that. So I really suggest really to go to the old rules of journalism, which is to check things 3 times from 3 different sources, because even expert like us, like we're talking about executive order, another fake news that came out recently was there was this video of Trump signing the executive order forbidding skinny jeans. I mean, I have to say, myself, when I saw these things first time, was okay. That's not so nonsense, actually. Maybe it's true because it was like signing executive order. I don't know. I guess this draw. You remember the microplastics? It was why not? Maybe. But then okay. But even for me, I had seriously 10 seconds in which I thought that could have been true. Because there was the video of him and the voice with AI on back saying, oh, so this is executive order to abolish the skinny jeans, and Trump and sign was okay. So really you need to keep always your mind very very focused and attentive, and also to rely. I think it's both things. On the one hand is to check your sources, to check several times, to go and see with your own eyes. And the other hand is your preparation. It's what we're doing here. Gives you the old good books that still gives you the instrument to really understand what is true and what is not true. So I think that education is still the only, let's say, nuclear weapon that we have against misinformation.
Add something.
Yes, one partial solution is to go and witness with your own eyes. It's true. It's also true that we have to find code of ethics, common code of ethics, and we have to find this code inside our categories, our association, journalists associations, and so on. But it's also true that editors have to spend more money to send journalists on the ground and to prepare their desks with great data analysts, because we have to match these 2 abilities, 2 skills. People on the ground, expert analysts, the desk inside the desk to analyze every kind of open data, Telegram channels, Twitter, ex-Twitter, X, because when we were on the ground, we decided to cover the front lines in Ukraine, and so to do that, we woke up very early in the morning to check Telegram channels because militaries talk via Telegram channels to understand where the events were going on. So we decided to reach that places after the analysis. Now, if we would have some colleagues in Rome to analyze this part, has been very easier for us. But I would like to share with you my personal experience about the arrest warrant because it's a curious situation when we decided to enter Kursk. It's because we saw two different versions about the control of Suja. Russian journalists claimed that the Suja was under Russian control. On the contrary, Ukrainian army said the opposite. So we decided to follow the Ukrainian army. We went there with an armored vehicle, so embedded. It's true that it's impossible to say, "Oh, stop here. I would like to go to take a look in this place." It's impossible. So it's a partial view, but it's a view. You can touch and you can talk with people and you can try to understand if civilians, for example, were scared or not. So we entered Kursk, we aired the reportage, broadcast the reportage, and Ukrainian Telegram channels start to spread this reportage. And after some hours, also Russian Telegram channels start to threaten us, to say that me and my colleague Simone were a legitimate military target, that Russian army had to kill us and so on. And then after 2 days, I think the Ministry of Interior or FSB, I don't remember, launched this criminal case against us, and we knew about this arrest warrant. In my opinion, it's this legal threat by Moscow is one of the battles that we have to fight, because this is a new threat. For me, this kind of reaction is just a way, a ploy to stifle the journalism on the ground, because the first step that was okay, other journalists decided not to enter Kursk because it's not scaring, but destroy your life because they can't go in Ukraine more. So it's just personal problem, but for other journalists, was they thought not to go. A lot of them. 20 journalists went, and they are living my same situation, and we can't have another other reporting from there. Now it's difficult now because Kursk is under Ukrainian occupation, but now army decided to leave because Russian is going on against the trenches, Ukrainian trenches. So it's difficult to talk about Kursk, but it's a symbol of Russian behavior with the journalists, and propaganda feed this Telegram channel, Kremlin supporters to spread this disinformation, this propaganda via social and via expert to invite in the talk show.
This is exactly why, we were saying before, regime, autocracy, they don't want you to go and see with your own eyes, exactly for that. And this is also on a smaller scale, but not smaller scale, something that is also happening in the US. The White House press correspondent, maybe you have seen and read this news, the administration decided that now they should be part of the White House press correspondent group. So that's mean the media that follow the president and report to the rest of the world what the president is doing or not doing. Also, non-conventional media, let's say, that's mean far-right, blog, podcaster, influencer, and even there were a few media like Washington Post, because if you go to the Pentagon as a journalist, you have to leave your mobile phone. Okay, you cannot use anything. So there were a few media, like as I said, press, Washington Post, New York Times. I think, there's really a few one that had their own office inside the Pentagon, so that they can do soon phone call and inform about what was happening, and their own channel connected with their own office. They took out two of them to put podcasters. So this is, also another way. It's not just you have to go and you see with your own eyes, but you need to have a preparation as a journalist and as a media reporter to do that. Because what is happening also in Trump policy is the idea that, everyone could be, if a journalist creates problem because they see things and they say things, everyone can be considered a journalist. No. And this is not a threat for our professional things in the future.
I think that's definitely a very worrying oversight that we have for the future. I think we're going to open up the floor now to some questions from the audience. I'm not sure how much time we have. I think we have 20 minutes for questions because unfortunately, I know that you have a flight that you need to catch. So yeah, we're just going to open up questions until approximately 10 to 4. So.
Over there.
So in your opinion on regarding this fake news, I find myself asking often, like when I hear Trump or even people like Orsini, who you probably want to explain who he is, because maybe not everybody's Italian, but are they playing the fool or are they actually fools? Like, do they mean what they say? Do they believe what they say? Or do they have an agenda? I'm just curious about your opinion.
We can maybe get a few more questions, then you can answer each one of them. If someone has any questions.
When a few weeks ago there was a meeting with all of the European leaders, there was actually a talk on an armed Europe, and I was wondering whether arming Europe would be the best and safest solution against threats that may be posed. Thank you.
Hi, we have seen by so far that Trump and Musk are very.
What's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea.
Rosalia.
Rosalia.
Letizia.
Letizia, okay.
My question is, so we have seen up until now that Trump and Musk have a very close relationship. What happens if, I don't know, in 5 years' time, in 1 month, today, they some way break up and they will go on with 2 different ideas? Thank you.
Yeah, let's start with that and then we'll see.
Okay.
I can start with Andrea.
Yes.
I don't know if they have an agenda, but I would like to see some investigation about this kind of fake statements, you know? I don't know about this guest in talk show, but when the Kursk issues happened to me, we decided with the right to denounce the situation. I denounced in Milan to Vigos, and after that the prosecutor, anti-mafia prosecutor, opened the case. But what we discovered with the lawyer, it's that there's a system, very precise system. This system born in Russia, and these proclaiming supporters start to make the same identical threats, the same words, the same rhythm, and so on. After one day, 24 hours, we discover another system in Italy who reply the same threats. So it's interesting for me to understand if there is a organized system, if there is an agenda organized by a foreign state, for example, a foreign country. But we didn't know because in Italy we didn't see any kind of investigation. And I asked for that because we saw in UK, yes, they discover some propagandists. Also, the European Union sanctioned a lot of Russian media. But for example, in Italy, we have Russian journalists who work for these sanctioned media who are still in our country, not for broadcasting for that media under sanctions, but a way to do their propaganda.
I may have to say that in Italy, because I think we have to distinguish between Orsini and Trump. Trump, I think that he believes, because he has a personal fascination to Putin. So and he's really a guy that reason on empathy. If I consider yourself, strong man, my level, you are my best pal. And plus, I think there are also economic interest for you, looking to his past and the history of these companies. When it comes to Orsini, it's unfortunately still a university professor in Italy, which I found quite disturbing. But anyway, he's still a university professor in Italy, someone that is invited a lot in the talk show. I think that I'm not afraid to say, but I do think that maybe, he has also some personal and economic interest in what he's saying, maybe, underpayment from Russia, I would say, because for me it's unbelievable. But also there is a problem there, which is a very peculiar things about Italian TV talk show. And I can say that because now I'm running one. And I try not to do the things that we see in Italian talk show. And because I've seen, living abroad such a long time, I've seen how those things work. I go back to COVID because so you can understand, when there was COVID, Italian talk show, they thought that it was the good things to do to invite people pro-vaccine or against vaccine. People who believe in COVID and who do not believe in COVID, as they should have the same, possibility of speak, as it was left to right. And, unfortunately, I work for a network, maybe because it's an American network, maybe because it's British, because we're part of Sky in the UK, that decided since the very first day that we would never invite someone that was against vaccine and that was saying that COVID and the pandemic was not existing. Because it's the same reason why if you do a debate about the international space, station, we don't invite a person that believes that the earth is flat. It's nonsense, it's not science, it's not news, it's nothing. So you don't do that. In Italy, no. In Italy, they have the same time of parole, and it's the same when it comes to the war. The war started, and at one point, I don't know why, I know why, because this is how Italian television works, we started to see Italian media full, but in a way which you don't see in France, you don't see in the UK, you don't even see in the US. full of people that, said that actually was the fault of NATO, the fault of West, that, this kind of massacre didn't exist. And I think this is something very dangerous of the Italian media system, something that I do not support, and my organization, the media organization, do not support. We do not invite people that deny that it was a Russian aggression to the Ukraine war. So it's the same kind of things that we apply, because we talk about facts, we use not entertainment. The second question, it was Trump mask, and then there was the European army. European army, yeah, it is necessary. It is necessary. It was necessary since the very beginning of the European Union. There was an idea to create the European defense community. They said in the 1951, France was against what I news, and that it wasn't being created. But even the Italian father of the Italian Republic, someone as Alcide de Gasperi, was someone that really supported the idea of a common defense. And in Italy, I think we are living a surreal debate about the fact that we are pro-common defense, we are against rearming. No, the two things, they're not in contradiction, guys. Especially because in the past 3 years, as Stefania knows very well, Italy, as other European country, gave a lot of its mission and capability to Ukraine, to help Ukraine. So we really have our storage empty, first of all. And on the second side, we also, since there is not, in Italy, we don't have anymore the obligation to become military, and as we do the military service that we used to have, the average age of our military people, but I'm talking about privates, not general, it's 42. So you understand that this is not something that can last too long. You really need to renew that because you don't have any more. I mean, Trump made it very clear you don't have any more this NATO, US umbrella, and they said recently that they're not opting. They're not. They could consider also the way of abandoning NATO. And I think there was an idea on Trump one. No one let him do that time. This time, I think it's possible, maybe not exit NATO, but saying, rewrite the Article 5, says that there is no obligation for them to intervene in case of aggression to another member states. So that's meaning we have to grow up. Also because it was not just Trump that asked us as Europeans to do more for our security and defense. In America, there is the view, and it's not just Trump, but in general, there's the view that we in Europe, we managed to create our welfare system, to be so keen and attentive to the needs of our population, because we don't have to spend money to think about defense, because we're Americans doing that. And somehow, it's true. So now we postpone these things for so long. I think now there is no time anymore to postpone, and common defense has a long process to become a reality. So in the meanwhile, let's start to rearm our national, army and try to see what we can do to think about ourselves, to grow up.
I totally agree with Giovanna. We have wishful thinking, like, oh, we will live forever in this perpetual peace, because yes, we're born in this peaceful era, but it's not true. Unluckily, I saw civilians who were obliged to escape from the Russian attack, and I would have never think about the possibility of a large-scale invasion in our country, but I witnessed it. So it's obliged to create a common defense. I think it's necessary, and maybe it's too late because of the that Giovanna said, to be sincere. It's true that it's a long path. But NATO, with Trump or without Trump, you will see it. We can start with this coalition of willing that you have seen in London 10 days ago, last week. They are talking about the guarantee for Ukraine, but they have also to talk about the possibility to create a common defense.
About Trump mask. Last one.
Starlink, yeah.
No, they're not just Starlink. They fight one day. So, it's a too big ego situation. That's quite clear. But normally, I would say that Trump will very soon change his opinion, exactly because it takes too much space. But this time, I think it's going to be different. If you think about Steve Bannon, for instance, I don't know if all of you, I don't know who it is. If it's not, go and have a look. It's not going to be pleasant, but do it. Anyway, Steve Bannon was his guru, let's say, during his first presidency. But after 2 years in the White House, he was kicked out because it was not just a yes man anymore. Especially at the time on the policy towards Russia, because it was against the approachment to Russia. So, and Trump already at the time wanted to have, he had another vision of his best pal Putin. So there was a reason of fight, and he just was kicked out from the White House. The problem is that you don't kick out Elon Musk from the White House. You don't kick out the richest man in the world from the White House. You don't kick out the man who control the social media that let you go actually into the White House from the White House. So I think this moment could come, but it's going to be a very bloody one. Let's see how it's going to end up, because it's difficult for him with this kind of tie that he has been created. By the way, yesterday we have seen something again. Go and have a look. Tesla, has a little bit of difficulties right now. Its selling is going down, not just in Europe, but also in the US. And so he had a spot in the White House from the president himself, with 3 Tesla parked in front of the White House. But the funny, interesting thing was one photographer took a picture of the notes that Trump had in his hands. There were the prices of each car and the kind of things that the car could do, like I don't know, car sellers right in the United States. So I think that the balance of power between the two is not someone that can leave the possibility to Trump to kick the guys out of the White House, because it's actually selling cars for him. So maybe the other way around.
I'm worried about Starlink because I think it's very wide. It's a private owner of the satellite system can decide the end of the war. We were there at the beginning of the invasion when Ukrainians could have been fighting for the first 2 years, thanks to Starlink, thanks to this satellite communications. Now also Russian army is using the Starlink. In some moment, some hot moment of the battles, we saw that Starlink didn't work, and we can saw also the effects, the consequences of this turn off. And now Moscow is threatening Ukraine to turn off the signal of Starlink. Yes, it's a decision to a private person, belong to a private person and not a country. So it's very dangerous that Europe is arriving so late to create a proper satellite system.
I think we have time for 1/2 more questions. If there be, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just very brief. On this point of Starlink, what do you think would happen if Musk was actually to shut down Starlink from Ukraine?
Starlink is the eyes of the world. So if you don't have the satellite signals, you can see via drones the other army, the other soldiers. Because now you decide where militaries decide where to hit thanks to the drones, and you can use the drones just via Starlink. So you can't shoot without the signals. Yes, you can try to guess the right positions, but it's difficult. You have to come back to the Second World War when to discover a position, the enemy position. You had to work through the camps, through the forest to discover the position, and I try to have a call in some way. You come back, but when you came back, maybe the tanks changed the position. So it's impossible to fight in this moment without Starlink.
Can I just ask something follow-up from this?
Yeah.
Given your experience, Stefania, in Ukraine, I was just wondering, when you were there.
Easy,
Yes.
That's it.
When you were there in Ukraine, how, as a reporter, you were in some kind of way like protected, or like how did you stay safe? Like how did it work when you were actually there reporting what was happening?
Oh, at the beginning when we arrived, 10 days before the invasion, we didn't know that we should have had the vests and the helmets. So we decided to buy old one from a ancient. Okay, better that I don't explain, but we bought all the materials and try to protect ourselves in some way. After that, when we came back, the second trip, Rai gave us a lot of vests, helmets, and so on. But you know, it's a very strange war, so it's difficult to find a place where you can sleep, because every hotel that we used now is bombed by the Russian army, so it's impossible to sleep in a hotel in Donbass for sure, but also in Zaporizhia, also in Kharkiv, also in Kherson. Sometimes we slept before the Russian or Arabs weren't in some shelters with other civilians people. Sometimes we rent an apartment to hide our presence in the city, because you know, for Russian army, journalists are a target. So day by day we decide how to hide ourselves.
Yeah, just a quick one, maybe, I don't know. But I was wondering, because you're both in news media in Italy, I was wondering what you think is the most important thing that Italian newspapers and news media and people in the media need to solve to actually get the quality of Italian news media to a better place. In some sense, you are an exception, but often I really struggle to read or get informed from Italian news media, because I don't think the quality is there. I prefer to get informed from foreign news media. So I was wondering, what do you think could be a solution from the decline that you see also in the talk shows or Italian media sources?
I don't know, I mean, you don't want me to fight with all my colleagues.
No, of course.
Except for Stefania. No, I'm sorry, there are a lot of very, very good, talented, award-winning journalists that we have in our country. But I think we also need to make a difference between written press and TV press. Written press in Italy, especially now that I'm running our main political show, in Italy there is a specific thing of written press, writing about politics, that it doesn't exist everywhere in the world, which is the retroscena. I don't even go up behind the scenes. The behind the scenes, it's, piece where you have the news actually, which are whispered by this politician, that politician. But this is because, and things are linked. This is also because in Italy, we don't have a spokesperson of the government. There is not this idea of politician to consider press as a power that represent the people that you have to confront and that you have to give the right information to. So we have a spokesperson of the government. It's more the spokesperson of the prime minister. That's just telling you the agenda of the prime minister, what the prime minister is doing. And if you want an interview with the prime minister, you have to pass through this guy or this lady. But there is not press briefing of the, spokesperson of the government, which I think is a nonsense. It's absurd. Having covered Brussels, for instance, you have the midday briefing every day. Everything the commission is doing as a report, you can ask questions on every subject. You have spokesperson for every. Even in the US, there was a big scandal and the first mandate of Donald Trump because for 3 months he didn't have the daily briefing of the spokesperson of the government. This is something that is normal because, you should be accountable towards the public opinion. And we are the media, I like the media because it's a Latin word, which means exactly instrument. We are the instrument for the people to see and know what are happening in the world, in the institution, and in the political power. So I think this problem also in Italian media is a lot linked on how politicians consider them. I remember in Brussels when I was in one of the first, and it was period of Berlusconi on one side, Merkel on the other side. And I remember, Merkel was always doing press conference after the European Council, as Macron did. Giorgia Meloni now is not doing it anymore. Draghi did, but it depends from the political side. But I still remember this moment in which I realized how much it was different being an Italian journalist. I was in the press conference with from Chancellor Merkel. There was a journalist asking, he stood up and he said, "So Chancellor, this is a question of internal politics. So I apologize if asking you that. That is something that, in the national political situation is very important to know." And he asked a question about something internal. And you know how Chancellor Merkel started to reply? She said, "Never apologize for asking me a question. You are a journalist, your job to do that. And it's my job to you, towards the German people, is to respond." This is something that you would never listen to from an Italian politician. So it's not just fault of journalists, I think it's also how the system works. And when it comes to TV, that's it. We sacrifice in Italy, we sacrifice to the audience everything. And we still think, as the Roman did, that to have people on your side, you just need to give them animated chance and entertaining. And so that's became more important than the news. Plus, it's not my network, it's their network. So maybe it's good I can say that more freely, but there is the hands of politics in the public TV in a way which I think it's not healthy and ungenerous. I don't know if that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
But there are a lot of incredible colleagues. Really.
No, for sure.
It's true that we have also to underline that you can talk about newscast and the talk show. It's different because TG News have a journalistic organization run by a director. We have the people who work there are all journalists, and we have to respect and follow the rules. The talk shows, in Right, for example.
There are nothing more. There are just two.
Yes.
Porta a porta and talk show.
Yeah, but
Politics
also
there.
Agora,
Yeah.
Okay.
in the morning, everybody.
If you put politics.
Yeah, the chat in the morning. But you know, not everybody there is a journalist, so they can escape some rules. For example, I don't know, it's healthy to speak about that, but anyway, Giletti invited a Russian propagandist under European sanction at right talk show, I don't remember the name. But anyway, Rai at the end decided, luckily to,
Not right.
yeah. But you know, it's crazy that you can even think to invite a person who violated any kind of European rules. It's just a way to destroy the credibility of the European institutions. It's not serious. You can invite everybody, but not a person who is under sanctions. In the TG news, you can do it. It's impossible. But anyway, we are trying to do our work, underlying the facts, underlying the
Dobbiamo andare.
No, I think it's students from.
Okay. But yes, we have to.
Yeah.
To go further in this situation.
May I add you something? You know, here in the UK, you live in this, we are in a very lucky country because it's like in the constitution, the media should be impartial, okay? So it's something that no one will ever question. Actually, I was very surprised when I went to the US as a correspondent, you know, was watching American network before, so I never in this way, which I was watching all the time in the US. And I mean, American media are extremely partial, but not just Fox News, as you can imagine, but also on the other side. So it is the eternal questioning on how you make and why you do this job. And as in American media, I would say that in Italian media, there is a lot of persons that do their job, this job in the idea of having a voice that can be heard because their voice is important to be heard. I do not do that. And I think Stefania and I did for that purpose. I do that going back to the idea of the media as, you know, the Latin word, because I want to be an instrument for people to see what things happen. I don't want to be a prisoner. I don't want to distort with my own opinion what they see. Because if I'm not trusted by someone that doesn't think as I do, I'm not doing well my job. But, you know, this is really our personal choice. And in Italy, there is a lot that, but it's not just in Italy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I think it's a very interesting conversation. I think. Yeah. Unfortunately, they won't be able to stay for a few further questions because they have a plane to catch. But thank you all for coming, and thank you again to our sponsors, United Italian Societies, LSE Italian Society, for this panel. And tomorrow there will be more panels of the Italian Symposium in London. Thank you.
Yeah.
Abbiamo le giacche. I think I can see also. Oh no, yeah, that's true. That's true. Just don't see what I'm saying. I don't know.
Buona giornata, pomeriggio a Londra, messa in sicurezza. Alle 16, alle 18:20.
Giriamo di là, giriamo di là.
Tutto valigia, diciamo. Interessante.
Oh, they lived there. What are they? Hi. Very well.
Seminar last week. Oh, I have.
Yeah.
I was in a conference in Scotland, so I couldn't move. Okay.
How was it last week?
It was fun, it was okay. Then we have here.
Some Italian.
That explains
Uh,
the matter people.
With the thousands.
on the walls.
I don't know what that was about.
Yeah. National Library.
But they are
Everything
still,
there.
they are, yeah, look.
Even your email, like.